This was about 6 to 7 years ago, when I was 17. I worked as a softline clothes sales associate at a large chain department store. My job was to walk around the floor and essentially keep everything organized. I would fold clothes, clean out the fitting rooms, put items that had been returned back in the right place, and help out any customers who needed it. Generally, I liked the job. It was easy, and all the girls I worked with were around my age and really cool. One of my least favorite parts of the job, however, was answering the phone calls. The customer service desk would put relevant calls through the phone in the appropriate department, and whomever was assigned for that area for their shift would answer it. These calls would usually consist of speaking to an employee from another store location about finding an item and putting it on hold for another customer, or speaking to a customer directly about whether or not we had an item they were looking for. It wouldn't have been so bad if the phones were cordless, but they were not. I have too many memories of running back and forth between the phones and the rest of the store as I looked for whatever the person on the other end wanted. But I digress. One particular summer day, there was a call for the kids department. I made my way over to the phone and took the call. It was a man speaking in a low voice, as if he was trying to be quiet. The conversation went something like this.
Hi, do you have any socks?
Yes, we do.
How big are they?
Do you mean like what size? The kids' socks are sized just like the shoes are. So we have socks that fit a range of sizes, like 4 to 6 and so on.
Yeah, but how big are they about?
Look, I don't know how to answer you. What size shoe does the kid you're shopping for wear?
I'm using them for something else. It's, an experiment.
That's the last part of the conversation I really remember. It was at that point that I was creeped out by more than just his voice. Now, I don't remember how the call ended, however. I know for sure I maintained my professionalism and found a way out of it, because I can remember telling the girl I was working with at the time. I ended up telling most of the girls who worked with me in Softlines, because all creepiness aside, I found it genuinely hilarious. And it might be worth mentioning once again that all of us who worked in the clothing department in this store were high school aged girls. It didn't take long for one of my colleagues to get a similar phone call. We happened to be working together, and she came to tell me about the weird phone call she just had. We compared our experiences and decided at this point we should tell the manager, since it was apparently a one-off thing. The manager at the time was a woman around my mother's age, who also happened to have daughters in high school. I was relieved when she looked disturbed as we recounted our stories and told us to come get her should he call back. If you guessed he did indeed call back, you get a cookie. The next few times he called, the same colleague got him, and she said the conversation always started with him asking for socks and becoming progressively more creepy. He would always ask really specific details about how big the socks were and what colors we had. When asked anything about what he needed them for, he always gave some vague, creepy answer like, "It's an experiment." The way she described it, he seemed to be escalating from his first few calls. It seemed like he would ask more questions or be breathing more loudly as he called back more and more often. What bothers me by far the most about this now, though, is that it always had to be kids' socks. He always called the kids department, and he always confirmed he was looking for the kids' socks when asked if he would rather be put to the men's department. The next time I tried to be subtle about the fact that I was getting a manager, I think that someone else had made the mistake of saying something like, "Hold on, let me ask my manager." And by the time the manager got to the call, he had already hung up. As soon as I heard, "Do you have any socks?" I fought the urge to vomit as I tried to be casual. After he asked me his inevitable, weirdly specific questions about the sock sizes, I told him I had to place him on hold so that I could go check. Of course, though, I bolted for the manager's office at the back of the store, probably looking like a lunatic. My manager dropped what she was doing to come to the phone with me and take the call. The dude was still on the line when she picked up the phone, but as soon as she introduced herself and asked how she could help, he hung up. I didn't hear anything about him calling again after that, and I sincerely hope he got scared enough to knock it off. More likely though, he just started calling somewhere else. This may not seem that creepy, but at the time I thought it was relatively harmless, but since I heard similar stories about weird calls to retail workers, this prompted me to share this here. So, dude with the weird affinity to children's socks, let's not meet.
So this happened to me almost 7 years ago now. I should give some background info before getting into things. At the time all this happened, I was around 16 years old, and I have a friend I'll call Karen, who was dating a boy named John. At this point in time, Karen and John have been dating for maybe 6 months, and after going out with Karen and John on many occasions, they decided they wanted to hook me up with one of John's friends. We'll call him Cameron. At this point in time, I had met Cameron in person once. He was nice, so I gave him my social media and we've been chatting a couple of times. It's important to note, he didn't have my number or know where I live. Now, it's time for the story. Fast forward to one night, maybe a week or two after I met Cameron. I'm laying in bed, it's about 2 or 3 in the morning, and I get a call from an unknown number. I was thinking, why the hell is an unknown number calling me at this time of night? I decide to answer to see who it is, so I answer the phone and say hi. A man responds hi back. Since I didn't recognize the voice on the other end, I ask the person who they are. Instead of giving me an answer to this question, the man on the line tells me to look outside my window. Thinking this is probably a prank call, I tell the man to F off and hang up the phone. Once I did this, the number called back again, but I didn't answer it. Then the person proceeds to call me another 4 times until I answer the phone, which again, I ask who the heck is calling. This time the person responds and tells me that one of my friends had given me my number, and that I'm the person that they've been talking to. At this point, my stupid 16-year-old mind is trying to rationalize this, and the only person I can think of is Cameron. Before I say anything to this person, he again tells me to look out my window. He's outside. And then I begin hearing noises outside my window. Now I should mention that my room is right beside my parents' room, and being stupid, my first thought was that this fool was going to wake them up, and I'd never hear the end of it. Let me tell you, that thought soon would turn into the last thing I would worry about that night. Anyway, at this point I'm also starting to get creeped out. I'm thinking to myself, okay, if this is Cameron, and Karen told him my number, how the hell would he know where I lived? So I reply to the man and say, Cameron? The man says yes, and tells me to look out my window. I reply telling him to go home and hang up the phone again. Weirded out, I decided I'm going to get up and go to my basement and call Karen, so that hopefully my parents didn't hear me talking from my room. This is really important because to get to my basement, I have to pass through a door that is partially made of glass. So I get downstairs and call Karen. She answers clearly half asleep. I tell Karen about the unknown number, which I'm assuming is from Cameron, and how he is telling me to look out my window because he's outside, and on top of this that I can hear someone out there. Karen, now clearly awake, tells me she has never given Cameron my number or address, and calls John quickly from her room to see if maybe he did. At this point, John answers and tells Karen that he only had never given my information out, but he is with Cameron now. They tell me if someone's out there, I need to hang up and call the police immediately. So I hang up, and before I can even go to dial anyone, I get another call, the unknown number. So I stupidly answer it, And before I can get a word in, the man tells me that he knows that I'm in my basement. He saw me walk by my back door. Now I'm clearly disturbed, as I did just walk by my back door to get downstairs, so I know someone is outside. Again, before I can get any words in, the man tells me to come outside. So stupidly, I tell the person I'm calling the police and hang up the phone. Why I didn't call the police at this point, I really don't know. Probably because I'm 16, stupid, and literally in panic mode. Not more than a minute later, I get another call, the unknown number. I answer again. The man tells me to come outside or he's coming inside to get me. Clearly panicking at this point, I have this deep gut feeling that if I go outside, I will never come back. However, I do have to go by the door again to get back upstairs, and that was equally terrifying me. So I hang up the phone again and muster up enough courage to run upstairs because the last place I wanted to be was in the part of my house where no one was. I get more calls from the unknown number again. My 16-year-old self stupidly answers. This time the voice on the phone sounds shook and says to me that police stopped me outside my house and wanted to speak to me to make sure I know him. The phone then gets passed off to someone who identifies themselves by name with some title I no longer remember, and asks me if I know the man outside my address. He says my house number and street. I tell the voice on the phone I don't have any idea who the person calling is and hang up the phone. Never got another phone call again. However, I did sit there all night holding a bat and have problems sleeping for months. I should also mention I didn't have many friends at this point in my life, and looking back at this night, I thought maybe it was a prank taken too far. However, I begged a few of my friends I did have for months to admit that one of them did it, and to this day, they all insisted none of them did this. So whatever got this person to stop calling me, thank God. And to the unknown caller, let's not meet.